Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto got harem with Femme Kyuubi Haku Kushina and Femme Orochimaru Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And comment for next part. And now start the fanfic. Naruto sighed in relief at that, as he was afraid this might have all been a prank. Well, I guess as your boyfriend, I should do a better job of taking care of myself in order to not make you worry. He said, which got the reaction of her face brightening and then squealing and pouncing on him. He stayed there on the floor, letting her hug him while constantly whispering, "Thank yous," at his response to her previous requests. So, when do you think I can get up? He asked. Why, don't you like holding me? She asked cutely while tilting her head slightly to the side. No one can possibly be this cute. Naruto mentally shouted before replying, yes, but it feels weird to be holding a girl whose body looks my age. Kurumi's face took on a mischievous expression when she heard that. Oh, so as long as I don't look like a child it's okay to stay here? She asked while grinning mischievously. He was confused by that. What do you mean? Isn't this how you naturally look? He asked, confused by what she meant by that. It was now Kurumi's turn to laugh. Silly Naruto-kun. She said, with a teasing tone that made Naruto worry, all while beginning to stand up. You didn't honestly think this is what I really look like, did you? She asked while still grinning. Naruto didn't have time to respond because in the next second, poof. Kurumi was covered in a puff of smoke and when it cleared, Naruto witnessed the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Where Kurumi once stood was longer a 10-year-old looking girl, what stood there was a drop-dead gorgeous vixen. Kurumi stood there with her huge, gravity-defying double F cup and perky nipples stood proudly on her chest, blatantly for Naruto to see. Her curvy, well-built body accompanied by her plump, mouth-watering thighs. Her heart-shaped face was accompanied with pink, porcelain-like lips and beautiful, orange-red slitted eyes. She had 3 whisker marks on each cheek similar to Naruto's but being much more prominent. Her hair had grown up to her upper rear with the addition of 2 braided locks framing on either side of her face. Well, is this better Naruto-kun? She asked while leaning forward with her arms crossed underneath her bust making them look bigger than they already were. Naruto went red-faced, wide-eyed and felt his throat dry at the sight while clamping his left hand over his face to stave off the nosebleed that threatened to break through. I mean, why you? Naruto stuttered while still staring at Kurumi's body. Kurumi giggled at his reaction and decided to take pity on the poor boy before he passed out in his mind as well. Poof. In another puff of smoke, Kurumi can now be seen wearing a loose, red, kimono-style blouse with black trimmings and no sleeves, red kung fu pants with the kanji, hu, on both thighs meaning fox and black kung fu shoes to finish. Naruto sighed in relief upon seeing this with his cheeks still containing a tinge of red. Naruto then looked back at Kurumi with such determination that it made her blush. Well, since we are now going to be going out, how about we find a way for you to get out of my mind and into the real world? Naruto said, and that made Kurumi brighten with a blush on her cheeks. Actually, Naruto-kun, I have a method to get out of here. Kurumi said, in a tone that, had Naruto caught, would make him extremely nervous and blush, while walking towards him. Really? That's great. What do yo? Naruto began to say before he stopped and yelped in shock and surprise when Kurumi came up to him and bit his neck. Suddenly, Naruto started to black out, and the last thing he felt was heat rushing through his neck before vanishing from his mindscape. Forest of Death. When Naruto woke up, the first thing he realized was that he felt very heavy for some reason. And not from the soreness of his body. He looked down and there, lying on his torso was Kurumi. She was holding onto him like a lifeline that would disappear if she let go. He probably would have let her hold onto him a while longer if he didn't have things to do today. Rami, he began, Can you let me up? Kurumi, for her part, snuggled closer and held him even tighter, which began to cause a sense of discomfort for him. Pet me, requested Kurumi as she used one of her tails to gently grab hold of one of his arms and guide it to her head. Silently chuckling, Naruto moved his arm so that he was now petting Kurumi in between where her ears were. Kurumi began to sigh and moan in pleasure at having Naruto pet her. It almost felt as good as kissing him, almost. Which reminds her. Kiss me. Upon this request, he paused in her petting and looked down at her with a raised eyebrow and a slight smirk. She felt this and looked back at him with a big smile on her face, with an expectant look in her eyes. Seeing this look, he chuckled again, then cupped her chin using between his thumb and index finger, tilted her up, and softly kissed her on the lips. Which she was more than happy to return. After their kiss, she let him get up while also getting up herself. Once the red-streaked blonde got up, he began to pop and crack his bones. The way they crunched was immensely satisfying as it briefly and quickly took away all of the stress from the previous day's workout. When Naruto cracked his neck to the side, he remembered when Kurumi bit him on his neck. He instinctively touched his neck and found the bite mark. When he found the mark, he instinctively began to rub it, which got a chuckle out of Kurumi. Kurumi, Naruto began. Kurumi answered, showing he had her attention. Why exactly did you bite me? Naruto asked. To get out of the seal, silly. Kurumi answered with a childlike innocence that seemed to add to her appeal. I know that, but if what's simply pushing your chakra through, then you could have simply held onto me and done it like that. Naruto said, still confused on the need for the bite. Oh, Kurumi exclaimed in understanding of what he was asking. Well, that's easy. I marked you as my mate. She replied again with childlike innocence. Naruto whirled around in surprise. Mate. Naruto exclaimed. Well, yeah, foxes don't having boyfriends and girlfriends. We have mates. Kurumi explained, giggling at his surprised, wide-eyed expression. Doesn't that basically mean we're married now? Naruto asked, now beginning to calm down. Yup, exclaimed Kurumi, but we're not, officially, married until you mark me too. Kurumi further explained, while turning around and walking as if conducting a lecture. Naruto raised an eyebrow and smirked at this information. Really? Naruto asked, beginning to come up behind Kurumi without her knowledge. Yup, and that is done by you biting my neck as well. But don't worry, I don't expect you to do that right now. Kurumi continued explaining until she turned around and bite. Naruto surprised her by biting her neck as well, by using his elongated fangs that he got by channeling chakra into them. Oh, Kurumi moaned in surprise and pleasure at the feeling of Naruto biting her neck. Once Naruto let go, he grinned at her with his signature fox grin. Well, Naruto exclaimed, looks like we are now, officially, married. Kurumi could only blush at this, so shocked by the turn of events. While Naruto looked around for his jacket that was somewhere in the area, Kurumi was having some thoughts about this turn of events. Did he just, ooh, and then he just grinned like it was something simple and easy. I want him bad. And with mating season coming soon, I'll most likely drain him dry unless I get some relief before mating season. As Kurumi thought the last part, she turned to look at Naruto, who had finally found his jacket and currently dusting it off. He better give me some relief even if we don't go all the way, or else I'll jump him and have my way with him. While this was happening, neither Naruto nor Kurumi had any knowledge of a creature watching the two. This creature looked like a spider, but not just any old spider. This spider looked to be made of gold while looking mechanical instead of organic. It had 8 blue eyes that looked on in curiosity. Its body seemed to have a flowing wind design. It seemed to be looking at both Kurumi and Naruto, but if one paid attention, they would see it as solely staring at Naruto. Interesting. It spoke while still staring at Naruto and recognizing the energy that he seemed to give of. Could it be? Meanwhile at the Uzumaki household, while Naruto was going through his ordeal with Kurami in the Forest of Death, the owner of the light brown, pupil-less eyes was currently making her way through the grounds of the Uzumaki compound in a hurry in order to report her findings to her teacher. Eventually, she found her teacher in the backyard of the main house training her daughter in the way of the sword. There stood Kushina Uzumaki, mother to Naruto and Naruko Uzumaki, ex-Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, and ex-wife of Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. She had fair skin, violet eyes, and the common red hair of the Uzumaki clan. She had a feminine build with curves in the right places. This is evident by her thin waist, wide birthing hips, and her F-cup. Her red hair, normally, reached down to her ankles with shoulder-length strands framing her face, all held with a black clip. Currently, however, she had her hair tied in a high ponytail using black-colored rope, similar to Naruto, with the shoulder-length strands of hair still there. She was currently wearing black shinobi sandals, black form-fitting pants, with her ninja pouches on her left thigh and behind her right hip. She had on the standard Konoha Junin flak jacket, while underneath, she had a black short-sleeved shirt, that was over a black mesh shirt. On her right arm were the two headbands for Konoha and Uzushiogakure that she normally wears. All of this shows that she's back on active duty of being a Konoha ninja. Currently, Kushina was training Naruko in her homeland's sword style, the whirlpool style, and was having great success. Naruko took to the sword just like her mother, and Kushina couldn't be any prouder. But then, while she was taking pride in her daughter, she remembered that she still did not know where her son was ever since she left Minato and the Namikaze estate. Flashback. The very same night that Naruto was told he will be locked out from now on, his mother, Kushina, had heard him come in and went to go see why he had come back so late. But then she heard her husband Minato talking and yelling at Naruto, and she was distraught at what she heard. She has always thought that family comes before anything, and when she met Minato, she had thought she found someone who she could be happy with and have a family with. But when she heard all of what was said, she quickly and quietly went back to bed, and pretended to be asleep when her husband came into the room. She heard grumbling in disdain about how Naruto was a weakling and would never amount to his younger sister Naruko, who was a couple minutes younger than Naruto. She couldn't believe that the man she had fell in love with could be so heartless to her child. And to say they will have to find shelter outside if they couldn't get home quick enough was appalling to her. The next morning, she went to Naruto's room, to talk to him and make sure he was okay, but when she got there, she was so frightened by what she found, she began to tear up. The room was barren, the dresser had been emptied and the window was open with the curtain flowing due to the gentle breeze that was let in through the window. When she saw this, she screamed. This got the attention of her daughter and husband. They both went to see what was wrong, and when they saw why she screamed and was currently crying, they each had different reactions. Naruko began to cry alongside Kushina while holding her. Minato, however, gained a neutral expression, believing that now that the weakling has left, he can better train the child of prophecy. He thought everything was going his way until Kushina stood up and glared at him with tear-filled eyes. She began shouting at him for not treating Naruto like the child he is and treating him terribly with neglect. After her rant, Minato's only reply was, "If he ran away, then that must mean he was weaker than I thought, and now I can finally train the child of prophecy the way I wanted to without that distraction." When Kushina heard this, she was livid. She told Minato that she would never let him train her daughter. And when he tried to argue that she couldn't do that because she was his wife and Naruko is his daughter as well, Kushina had finally had it. She let Minato know that she had heard all that he had told Naruto the previous night and that she was disgusted in who he had become, and that she would be leaving him with Naruko to the Uzumaki compound where they will live, and when they find Naruto, they will welcome him with open arms whether he is weaker than Naruko or not. Minato was frozen stiff in shock. He couldn't believe this. His wife, the mother of his children, had just said she would be leaving him all because he wouldn't take care of a weakling. This was an outrage. He was not about to let all of these years of training his daughter go to waste over a weakling. As he was stuck in his thoughts, Kushina and Naruto packed up their belongings and were out the door. After they left, they heard Minato shout in anger and frustration that she could not do this to him. Immediately, following the shout, Minato came running out with a kunai in hand, planning on forcing Kushina to stay. However, he forgot that before she retired, her epithet was the red-hot-blooded habanero, and so when he struck, he was not expecting to be suddenly looking up at the sky while feeling pain in his left shoulder. It took Minato a total of 2 seconds to realize what had happened. Kushina had moved so fast he hadn't seen her move, cut off his left arm at shoulder length, burned the wound shut, and knocked him on his back. Once everything had caught up to him, he shouted in pain while gripping the wound with his right hand in an effort to stave off the pain, only resulting in agitating the wound, causing more pain. When he shouted, 3 Anbu suddenly appeared with weapons drawn. The Anbu that appeared were Snake, Dog, and Cat. Snake had violet, pineapple-shaped hair and the snake mask on their face, Dog had gravity-defying white hair and the dog mask on, and finally, Cat had long, straight, purple hair. "Hokage-sama, what has happened?" Dog asked, with a voice that clearly showed this was a male, while he helped the Hokage stand while also looking around for the danger along with the other 2. Anbu. Arrest Kushina Uzumaki for attacking the Hokage. Minato tried to order, but instead of the collaboration of highs he should have received, all he got were the Anbu, turning to look at him, while all 3 tilted their heads showing they were confused. "Why are we arresting Sensei?" came the voice of Snake and Cat at the same time, clearly indicating they were female. "Because she just attacked me and cut off my arm. Or is the lack of my left arm not obvious?" Minato yelled rhetorically. "Is this true, Sensei?" asked Snake, while Cat looked at her teacher as well. "Yes, but maybe he should have also mentioned that it was in self-defense when he came running at me and my daughter with a kunai for attempting to leave him in this kami-forsaken compound because his mistreatment of my son has led to him running away and disappearing." Kushina replied with the shouting acute, "Yeah," in the background. "Hokage-sama, is this true?" Dog asked, while he and the 2 other Anbu frowned from behind their masks. "So what if it's true?" Minato shouted, "As your Hokage, I order you to arrest her." At this the 3 Anbu shook their heads while sheathing their weapons. Dog replied, "I'm sorry Hokage-sama, but unless she attacked you first, then we cannot do anything about what has happened to you other than take you to the hospital." Minato growled in anger at this, and glared at Kushina and said, "This isn't over, Kushina. I will have my child of prophecy, and no one will get in my way." With that said, the 3 Anbu were about to leave, but then Kushina said, "Snake, Cat, can you wait for a moment?" Snake and Cat looked at each other before looking at Dog, and all 3 nodded their heads before Dog left to the Hokage to the hospital, leaving the 2 Anbu with Kushina and Naruto. "What is it, Kushina-sensei?" Snake asked, while both her and Cat looked at Kushina. Kushina frowned. "Can you 2 take off your masks so we can talk face to face?" Snake and Cat looked at each other before shrugging their shoulders and taking off their masks, revealing the faces that lied underneath. Once Snake took off her mask, it revealed a set of light brown, pupil-less eyes looking at Kushina with curiosity. She has lightly tanned skin, and a pair of soft, pink lips. This is Anko Mitarashi, former apprentice of Sanin Orochimaru, and former student of Kushina Uzumaki. When Cat took off her mask, it revealed a pair of brown eyes filled with curiosity that were focused on Kushina, fair skin, and soft red lips. This is Yugao Azuki, a fellow former student of Kushina Uzumaki. "So, what can we help you with?" asked Yugao, as she was curious because normally Kushina would talk to them and ignore them leaving their masks on. This could only mean she was serious and needed a personal favor. I need both of you to help me find my son, Naruto. Begged Kushina, with eyes filled with tears and motherly love while on her knees. I will pay you and anyone you get to help you. Just please help me find my son. Anko and Yugao were surprised. They, in all the time they knew Kushina, had never seen her on her knees or crying for that matter. And the tone that she was speaking to them with was so heart-wrenching that they felt they were about to begin tearing up. They both moved to Kushina and held her, comforting her, with Naruto coming over to help comfort her mother as well. Don't worry about money, Kushina-sensei, said Anko, we will find him for you and make sure you are reunited with him. Yeah, agreed Yugao softly, we'll find him and bring him back to you. No, exclaimed Kushina, surprising the two kunoichi, no, I don't want you to bring him back. I have faith that we will meet again in the future and that he will come home. Kushina explained upon seeing the accusing looks from the three other females there. What I want you to do, is report to me what you found, like where he is, how he looks, and what he was doing when you found him. Continued Kushina. Anko and Yugao both nodded in understanding, before Anko looked nervous about something which was not missed by Kushina. Is something wrong? Kushina asked, worry evident in her voice. Anko now had the attention of all three other females. Kushina had a look of worry along with Yugao, and Naruto just looked curious. What if, started Anko, when we find him, he's dead? After Anko asked this question, there was a brief silence. During this silence, the tension in the air seemed to rise as Kushina's eyes were shadowed. Yugao looked between Anko and Kushina nervously, and Naruto looked to be on the verge of tears when she heard this question. This continued for a minute before Kushina sighed and looked straight at Anko. He won't be, came the simple reply from Kushina. Well, started Anko, how can you be so sure? Because, Kushina answered, now looking up and revealing eyes with pure determination and faith, he is my son, and if he's anything like me, then he will fight and survive. Kushina replied, with total faith that her son will be alive and well when he is found. Flashback end. After going down memory lane, Kushina snapped back out of it and focused on her daughter. Naruto looked like the spitting image of her when she was 10 years old with some slight differences. Naruto, like her mother, had straight, red hair that reached down to her waist that was currently braided, with the strands of hair framing her face. She had violet eyes, that currently held the fire of determination in them. She had a slender, petite feminine frame and was currently holding a blunted katana for her training. She was wearing a red battle kimono with black-white trimmings, short sleeves, and ended just past her hips. On the back lied the symbol of Konoha on top of the symbol for Uzushio. She had black, form-fitting biker shorts with a pouch on her right thigh that was made of two small pouches put together. One for her ninja tools such kunai, shuriken, ninja wire etc., and the other was for medical supplies. And finally she was wearing a pair of black shinobi sandals. Currently, Naruto was training her heart out, unable to wait for the day she will be able to stand by her brother. She knew what happened that night because just like her mother, Naruto had been awake the night Naruto came home, and she hated her father for what he said. She had been planning on talking with Naruto the next morning, in order to get him to go with her so that they could talk to their father together so Naruto could receive training and be treated better. However, before she could even talk to him, she found out that he had ran away. She was heartbroken that her brother would leave like that, but that was also the day that she swore to herself that the next time she sees him, she will welcome him with open arms. Naruto and Kushina were broken from their musings when they felt a presence join them in the backyard. They turned to look at the person and were surprised to see a panting Anko, looking ecstatic despite being out of breath. Anko hadn't changed much over the years. At least personality-wise. She had retired from Anbu and is now a Tokubetsu Junin. She now wears a fitted mesh bodysuit that covers from her neck to her thighs, but does nothing to hide her double E cup, a tan trench coat with a purple seam, a dark orange mini skirt, that emphasizes her wide hips and bubble, dark blue belt, and pale gray shin guards. Along with her forehead protector, she has a snake fang necklace. All in all, she is now one hell of a looker. Once Anko regained herself, she looked at the mother-daughter duo with a smile, and said 3 words that gave them more hope these past 3 years than anything before. I found him. When they both heard that, they looked just as ecstatic as Anko. Kushina immediately flared her chakra in a specific pattern, and before her were all the people that had agreed to help her look for her son. Gathered around were her former students, Kurenai Yuhi, Hana Inuzuka, and Yugao Azuki. As well as her fellow mothers, Sume Inuzuka, Makoto Uchiha, and Hitomi Hyuga. Kurenai is a fair-skinned woman with a curvy build. She has long, black untamed hair reaching her upper back, and currently has a regular Konoha forehead protector around her forehead. She is wearing a red mesh blouse that only has the right sleeve visible, and resembles bandages with rose thorn patterns on them. This, however, does nothing to hide her E-cup and emphasizes the fact that she has a bubble butt. She also has bandages wrapped around her hands and is wearing regular, black shinobi sandals. She has purple eyeshadow, and red lipstick that bring attention to her lips. However, her most unique feature would be her eyes. They are a pair of ruby-colored eyes